To learn how to write Python, you need to learn how to write functions. Here is an introduction to functions. So we're going to start off by trying to understand what functions are. So here we have many receipts. Here we have many payslips. Here we have many statements. So do we keep starting from the beginning, redoing the same thing? No, we don't. That would be a waste of time. We create a template and that saves a lot of work. So reuse means write once and use many times. So we have a template, we add some details, and now we have receipts. Payslip, we have a template, we put the details in, out comes a payslip. So a function we can think as putting in something, it does something to the input, and then it produces something that comes out. That's a function. So for example, we can put a coin in, gum machine, and out comes some gum. Vending machines, we put money in and we get a drink out or something else out, maybe a snack. We think of mathematics when we hear the word functions. And if you think about it, in a function in maths, we can have things that go in and things that come out. So for example, say we have a function where we have x squared plus y squared. Well, we put the values in x and y and we get the output from the function. So for example, if x and y are 3 and 4, the output will be 25. If x and y was minus 1 and 3, the output would be 10. If the input was 10 and 5, the output would be 125. So let's look at some examples. Here we've got a function called sum nums. So we have 5 and 9 as the input, and the answer, the output, is 14. Squares. We put in 5 and 9, it comes out with 25 and 81. Here we've got sum of squares. We put in 5 and 9, gives us 106. Subtract num. We put in 5, then 9, comes with minus 4. So we don't need to see inside the function. We can put in input and it will give us the correct output. And we can use it many times. Passing. So the function does something. We pass something in and it passes something back out. We put brackets to receive the things and to return them. So if we look at a function call, when we want to use the function, we have something going in and something coming out. In the function call, we're going to use the name of the function to call it. So in brackets, in this example, the my_in will go in and out will come my_out. So here's an example where the sum of numbers is going to pass 5 and 9 in, and then out will come 14, the correct answer. So let's look at functions in Python. So the code. So it seems quite a lot here, so let's break it down. 1. We've got my number and that equals 11. If we print that, it prints 11. That's nice and straightforward. For a function, we start off with the word define, shortened to def, def. Then we've got the function name. In this example, it's called double num. In brackets, here's something that's coming in. In this example, we're going to call it num. Don't forget the colon at the end. Underneath, we've got that gap to say the code is part of the function. Remember, it's called indentation. And the code to double a number is num equals num times 2. We also need to return that answer. So we have return, and then brackets, inside the brackets, the things that we're going to return, in this case, num. Finally, we need to call the function. So we use the name double num. In brackets, what we're sending, my num, and in this case, the answer that's returned is going to go back into my num. So my number equals 11 before the function. We send it to the function, and when it comes back, it now equals 22. So we print it, we'll have the correct answer. You may have already seen functions. There are built-in functions in Python. Can you remember when a user enters a number, it comes in as a string, and we want to change that to an integer? We had mynum equals int mynum. That is a built-in function. We have the function name, which is int. We put mynum in, and out comes back to my number. We change mynum to an integer. So changing the type, we use a function. We used int, we used float, and we used string with brackets. So we had something that went to the int function and returned from it, something that we sent to the float function and returned, and sent to the string function and returned from that. So how do you build a function? Well, give it a name, put your code inside it, and don't forget what's going to go into the function, what are you going to send to it, and what's going to come out. So what are you going to pass to the function, and what is the function going to return? So here's the outline of a function. We're always going to use def, we're going to have brackets and the colon, and we're always going to have return and brackets. So remember, we wanted to include the code, and we're going to have to give the function a name. So in this example, we could have a name double number, and the code for that would just be mynum equals mynum times 2. So we put them in. So now we've got define def double number, and we've got the code. So is there anything that we've forgotten? Yeah, we've got to send it something. So in this case, we send it mynum, and the out, what's going to be returned, is also mynum. So we can put them in there. So that's our function called double number that returns the double of a number sent to it. So can you see how we've built that from our original template? We put number 1, we put our name in. Number 2, we put the code in. Number 3, we put the input and the output, what was passed and what was returned. So calling a function, we just have the function name, what's going to go into it, what's going to be passed to it, and what's going to come out of it. So in these examples, we've got 5 goes to double num, the output's going to be 10. Double nums, send it 5 and 9, output 10 and 18. Square nums, 5 and 9, 25 and 81. Sum of square nums, 5 and 9, 106. Subtract nums, 5 and 9, minus 4. So they all get sent or passed these numbers, 5 and 9, these integers, and the answer is returned to the variable or variables at the beginning, before the equals sign, and then we can print them for the output. So that's how we call a function. We've shown you how to put things into a function and how to return them. That doesn't mean the function has to have something sent to it, and it doesn't have to return anything either. So we can look at some code. Here we have double number, we've seen before, and remember how to call it. We've got here mynum equals double mynum, and then we can print that. Here we've got the sum of numbers. Notice we've got a and b equal 5 and 9, then we send a and b, and in the function itself we pass it a and b, but inside the function we can use different names. So we've got x and y, and then z equals x plus y, so that's the sum, and it returns it. And then if we look at the code where we call sum of nums, we've got myout, which we print. So the variable names that you send, the things that you send, you don't have to use the same name in the function. So the variables that you use inside a function, those are used just inside that function. They don't have the values outside. Programming, these are called local variables. Okay, time for some practice. Write a function that takes two numbers and returns these two numbers multiplied together. So if you enter 5 and 9, the function will return 45. Write a function that gets an integer from the user and returns it, and then print the number. So if the user enters the number 6, then number 6 will be printed. Write a function that prints a number 1 n times, where n is an integer passed to the function. So if you have a number such as 5, that gets passed to the function, and then that will print 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, the number 1 5 times. Okay, let's go through the answers. Function that takes two numbers and multiplied them together. So we have multiple numbers with a and b. These are the numbers that are going to come into the function, and we're going to multiply them together to equal c, and that gets returned. So in our example we have x and y of 5 and 9. They get sent to the function using the function name, and the return value comes back to z, and that's printed with the correct answer of 45. Now let's get an integer from the user and return it. So here we've got get num. There's nothing passed to it. We just get the number from the user by input. We change that to an integer, and then we return it. When we call the function, we do have a variable called new num where the answer comes, but there's nothing sent in brackets after the function name get num. And then we just print our number, for example 6. Write a function that prints the number 1 n times. This seems quite straightforward, except for if you multiply number 1 by 5, it will be 5, not 1, 1, 1, 1. So how would you do that? Well, here we've called our function show num times, and we're going to pass it a number which we call n, and then we're going to kind of cheat here really. We're going to make the string 1 times by n, so that would give us a string of 1, 1, 1, 1, and then we change that to an integer and print it. We don't need to return anything because we only need to print it. So we just call the function show num times and give it a number. So in this case we give it a number 5, and it outputs 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, we've finished with some terms. Okay, so a function is some reusable code that completes a given task, and we can call it as many times as we like. When you write a function, it's said that you define a function. We can pass a function, you send one or more things to a function, and when you return from a function, you send one or more things from a function back to your call. The function call is when you run that code, you call it by the function's name, and there's also some built-in functions in Python, so they're functions that are already written and come when you get Python on your computer. Okay, that finishes this video. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Okay, bye for now.